Alright, in this tutorial I'm going to walk you through the process of using the Pathfinder panel to create shape shortcuts for logo designs. So here in Illustrator, I'm going to go to File and Open. I've already started an Illustrator file in my Chapter 7 folder, folder 7.1, Pathfinder logos. I'm going to open up this Illustrator file. And you can see right here, on top of every logo, I have already drawn the simple geometric shapes that it's going to require to make these logos. So first, I want to set up this page a little better. So on my bottom layer, my template, I'm going to double click, and right down here, I'm going to dim my images to only 20%. So I get a light scan. It's going to be easier to see my artwork on top of the scan. I'll come up to the top layer, and before I start working, especially with logos, you're going to have to line things up. So I'm going to go to View menu, turn on Smart Guides, so there is a check mark. I go to View menu again, turn on Snap to Point. Snap to Point and Smart Guides work with each other. Okay, the other thing that I want to do is go to View menu one more time and hide my bounding box. A bounding box is a transformation tool, and you're not going to need it here. It'll just get in the way, so hide the bounding box. Okay, what I'm going to do when I go to use Smart Guides is I only want a few of them to show up. So I'm going to go to Illustrator, Preferences, and Smart Guides. Okay, my Smart Guides, I want to see them more clearly, so I'm going to make them medium blue, a dark color, so it's easy to read on the screen. And you'll notice all the Smart Guides are enacted or enabled, and I don't need all of those. So I do want alignment guides. That's going to help me line up all these shapes. I do want object highlighting, so Smart Guides are going to tell me when I'm on an object. I don't need transformation tools. I do not need construction guides. Over here on the right, if I'm on an anchor point or on the edge of the path, I want it to tell me which one I'm on. I do not need measurement labels, and I do not need spacing guides. Now I can click OK and begin working. So I'm going to zoom in right here, just enough so I can see these two drawn shapes and the scan down below. And with my black arrow, you'll notice when I hover over the edge, my Smart Guides are starting to light up. I'm on a path, or right up there, I'm on an anchor. And I can also see a little X in the center. So I'm going to come down to this center point, click. Now I've activated the circle. And with my alignment guide, that vertical line, I'm going to drag this right down to there. And I'll let go of the mouse. Now I'm going to come back up on the center point. There's my alignment guide again. And now I'm going to zoom in a little closer on this. Take my black arrow, continue to pull this down so it snaps right there. Half of the circle is in, half of the circle is out. My goal is to make this little circle make copies all the way around the big circle. Okay, so with just the little circle selected, not the big one, just the little one, I click once on my rotate tool and I hover over the center of the entire logo, this big circle. You can see right there that my Smart Guide is lighting up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is hold my Option key or Alt key on a PC, Option and click the center, and I'm rotating from here. So I'm going to type in an angle of 20 degrees. If you're not sure that 20 degrees is correct, turn the preview on and off so I can see 20 degrees is the correct spacing between these circles. Okay, what I want to do is keep the original and make a copy. So I'm going to click copy. And what I've just told the computer to do is make a command. Rotate a copy of an object at 20 degrees. So what I want to do is duplicate that command. I want to repeat it. So on my keyboard, I'm going to hold down my command key the whole time, and with the command key held, I'm going to hit D, D, D. That means duplicate, duplicate, 20 degrees, 20 degrees, copy, 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 Command D, Command D, Command D, every 20 degrees. Okay, I just made one and copied it. The rest was shortcuts. So these are what you're going to do with your logos. You're going to make a bunch of shapes that kind of interact and overlap with each other. Logos basically start off like a mess. And what I want to do is select all of that mess. Before I do anything else with this, I need my Pathfinder panel. So that's under Window menu, down to Pathfinder. And what I always recommend is I put the Pathfinder up here in the upper left corner. And with all of these objects selected, I click the first button on the top row. It's called Unite. So instead of having a bunch of separate circles, they're all going to unite or blend or melt together when I click, and now I have the outline of that first logo. Okay, so if you're working on this in a classroom setting, which you would probably be turning into me, I recommend you save your progress after each logo. Okay, so I'll just go to File, Save As. I'll click on my desktop, and I'm going to call this last name, first name, Pathfinder logos. I'll click Save. I'll click OK. Because you have a lot of logos, so you don't want to get down to the 8th one and then Illustrator freezes up on you. Okay. When you're done with this, we can come back and fill it later. I'm going to click outside, hold my space bar for the hand tool, and pull the next logo over. I can hit Command and minus a couple of times to zoom out so I can see the next two pieces for this stamp logo. So again, with my black arrow, I can hover over the center of a geometric object, pull that straight down by using that alignment guide right there. Let's go right there. Then I'm going to take this small circle, pull that down, and right on the edge, half of the circle is inside, half of the circle is outside. I'll just zoom in again so you can see that. Okay, our goal is to make evenly spaced copies of this little circle across the top. So what I'm going to do with my black arrow is put it right on the bottom point, click and drag, and there's my alignment guide lining it up. So right there, I'm going to hold my Option key for a copy, and I'm going to let go of the mouse first. All I need to establish is the first and the last. Okay, I'm going to let shortcuts do the rest. So with my black arrow, and this is really important, click and drag and only hit the two circles. You do not want to hit the box. Okay, we're done with the box. It's just the two circles like that. Right down here next to your eyedropper tool is your blend tool. Okay, so with these two objects selected, I'm going to double click on the blend tool. And instead of blending color, which there is no color, I'm going to set it to specified steps. Steps means copies. Now there are only, 5 more copies, not the default of 8. So I'm going to type 5 and OK. And now those values are stored in this cursor. So what you have to do is click similar points. So I'm going to put it right on the top point of the first circle where this little box turns black. Click and let go. Then I come over to the top point on the second circle, click and let go. And that will blend 5 evenly spaced copies between the two. But here's the issue. These are not actually there. Notice you can see anchor points on the first, anchor points on the last, but you don't see them here. And that's because right now they don't really exist. This is showing you the effect. So if I went to View menu and Outline mode, you can see they're not really there. I go to View menu, Preview. So I'm seeing the effect, but I want to, and I have to use these other 5 circles. I have to make them reality. I have to be able to see those anchor points. Okay, so what I do is Object menu, expand the effect right there. I'll click OK. Now I can see anchor points on every single circle. If I go to View and Outline, all my circles are there. View and Preview. And now what I want to do is make copies of all these evenly spaced circles down to the bottom. So right here on this bottom anchor point, I just click and drag with my black arrow. There's my alignment guide. And right there, I hold Option key for a copy, let go of the mouse first. Okay, so now that I have the top and the bottom, I need these circles going up the sides. So again, I'm going to take my black arrow, click and drag, and only hit the circles at the top. Hold Shift key, click and drag, and only hit the circles at the bottom, not the square. I just need all these circles again. If you accidentally hit the square like this and you got everything, hold Shift, click and drag over the edge of the square to deselect it. You only want the circles. So right here is my rotate tool, and if I double click on that, I'm going to set up the rotation point, which falls right in the middle of this logo. So at 90 degrees, I can preview that. They're going to rotate to the sides of the box, so I'm going to rotate a copy. And now I have completely surrounded this square with a bunch of evenly spaced circles. So just like the previous logo, you have a bunch of shapes that kind of overlap. What you want to do is check your color on these. So I'm going to select everything, go to my fill color on my toolbox and fill them, let's say orange. And you'll notice when I click outside, the circles are actually behind the square, and that's not good. I could only see that when I use color. So I'm going to click outside, click only on the square, and say Object menu, Arrange, Send to Back. The square has to go back behind the circles. And the only way I can tell that it truly is behind is if I have color. Okay? So now that I've got everything set up, I select everything with my black arrow, go to my Pathfinder, and now the second button on the top row is called minus front. It's going to take all those circles that are in front of the square and minus them or subtract them from the edge like this, click, and it's going to gouge out these little divots, evenly spaced divots from the edge of this basically postage stamp. Okay, that's another logo done. Command S to save my progress. Hold my space bar and I can pull this over to the next logo. Command and minus a couple of times so I can see. And with my black arrow, I'm going to hover over the center of the circle, drag it straight down with my alignment guide right there. Then I go to the center of the rectangle. Geometric objects automatically have a center point. And I'll put that center point right on top of that center point. You can see my alignment guide working right there. Perfect. And I'll zoom in a couple of clicks again. So now with only the rectangle selected with my black arrow, I go right back to my rotate tool, double click so I can bring up the rotate dialog box here, and I'm going to type in 30 degrees. I'll turn my preview on and off so I can see 30 degrees was the correct angle. I'm going to rotate a copy at 30 degrees, and just like I showed you before, if you hold down your command key and hit D, you will duplicate a copy. Command D, Command D, Command D, every 30 degrees. With my black arrow, I can select everything. And from this point on, I'll start using colors just so you can see what's going to happen. So I'll just fill everything yellow like that. In this case, it doesn't matter that the rectangles are below the circle because I'm going to unite or melt everything together. So I'm going to click the first button called Unite, and there's my gear logo. Command S, save another logo there. Command and minus a couple of times, and I can hold my space bar for my hand. And I'll just pull this over to come down to this next row, and I'll zoom back in. Okay, we're on a good tear here. So I'm going to take my black arrow, click on the center of this empty circle, and pull that straight down with my alignment guide right there. Okay, now I need two other copies of this. So again, with my black arrow, I'm just going to pull this center point right along this curve, and right there I'm going to hold Option for a copy and let go of my mouse first. And then I'll do that again with this center point. Just pull it along this curve right here, right where the circles intersect. Hold Option for a copy and let go of my mouse. Now again, you're not going to see the effect on this until you fill this with color. So I'm going to select all three with my black arrow, click on the fill, and fill them. I'll just come up here with a light green, maybe like that. And when I click outside, you can see I don't have the logo. I have three circles or discs piled on top of each other. Okay, that's how logos start. They start as a mess. So I'm going to select all three. Let me move this out of the way. And on my Pathfinder now, on the bottom left corner is a Pathfinder called Divide. You can see where the circles are overlapping. So instead of just three big circles, I want to divide these shapes up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 smaller pieces. And that's by selecting them all, going to my Pathfinder panel and clicking the bottom left corner. Divide them into 7 smaller pieces. And what you have to keep in mind is when Illustrator does that, it's basically creating little puzzle pieces that all fit together. And as we all know, once you put together a puzzle, you don't want it to fall apart again. And that's what Illustrator is going to do. It's going to glue these pieces together. So if I clicked outside and tried to click one, it keeps selecting all of them. So what you have to keep in mind is on your Pathfinder, as soon as you use Divide, you should go to Object menu and Ungroup. So make sure they're all still selected. I've used Divide, and now I go to Object, Ungroup. Now I click outside to deselect them all. And now I can pull this apart. So I can take this piece out and delete it, take that piece out and delete it, and that piece out and delete it. By taking 3 larger shapes and dividing them up into smaller pieces, I created my own little jigsaw puzzle here. Command S to save. Another logo done. I'm going to hold spacebar as I always do, and I'll pull this over until I can find this circle. And I want to keep this kind of big, so I'm just going to pull it down just enough so I can see that bottom edge right here. And I'll pull this down. There's my alignment guide right there. Okay, and now I can pull the center down. And I want to put it right in the middle of this design. So what I'm looking at is the spacing right here and the spacing right there, the spacing right above the orange and right below the orange. But I'm really looking at this spacing from here and here, and that looks pretty centered for my taste for what I want to do. I think that looks good enough. Okay, I have a perfect circle, but we have a wavy line. So here's what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to go to Effect menu, Distort and Transform, and notice I'm up here, not on Distort way down here. These are Illustrator effects, so Distort and Transform up here. And I'm going to come down to a zigzag line. Okay, with this dialog box, you always move it out of the way and turn on preview. And this is making real pointy lines, so I want to make smooth lines, wavy lines. There are just too many waves here, so instead of 4 ridges per segment, I'm going to drag this down to 2, and that will match my scan right there. 2 ridges per segment, they're smooth, the size is default 0.14, and I click OK. But again, here's what you got to keep in mind about Illustrator. I did this from my effect menu. This is a visual effect. Okay, if I went to view and viewed it in outline mode, it is still the original circle. So I will go to view and preview. I need to turn this original circle into truly a usable wavy line. And the way you can do that is to break the effect right here. Object menu, expand the appearance of what I used from the effect menu. And now I can see the anchor points that I truly do have a wavy line. What I have is a very thin line. So right up here, instead of the stroke weight being 1, I'm going to keep hitting that up arrow until I come up to 10. Instead of this being a black line, I'm going to click on the stroke option near the bottom of my toolbox, and I'm going to come over to the swatches and make that orange. Okay, what I need is a copy of this for the blue. So I'm going to click once on my rotate tool. Objects always want to rotate from their center point, so that's perfect. I just put my cursor right on one of these upper points, click and drag, and right there. There's my alignment guide, option key for a copy, and I always let go of the mouse first. So now I've got another copy of that star. I don't want it to also be orange, so I'm going to change that to blue, just like I have in my scan. And the problem is this. When I turn off my artwork, notice how the blue goes over the orange and then tucks underneath. Then it goes over, under, over, under. Okay, Illustrator doesn't do that. Illustrator's blue goes over and over and over and over. We need to trick the viewer into thinking these two lines are twisted or braided around each other. And the only way you can do that is to turn thick, fat lines into tubes of color. You cannot do that trick when you just have a stroke. Okay, I need to turn this into like a pipe. So notice how the line is right down the center of the orange because this is an orange stroke. And same thing with the blue. I'm going to select them both with my black arrow and convert them into pipes by going to Object menu. Anything I draw on the page is a path. And I will outline the stroke. So now instead of the reds going right down the middle, now I get red edge on the outside and the inside edge, not going down the middle. View, outline mode, and you can see now they are pipes with fills, not just strokes. So I'm going to select them again, go to view and preview. And what I have to do is break this up into a bunch of little pieces. And the way you break things up is your divide, Pathfinder, bottom left corner of your Pathfinder panel. I click divide, knowing that when I click divide, I have to go to Object menu and ungroup the results. I click outside to deselect. And now, again, I want the blue to go over this part, but I want it to look like it tucks underneath the orange here. So I'm going to click that piece right there. Then, by holding down my Shift key, I'm going to skip this one, Shift click, skip, Shift click, skip, Shift click, skip, Shift click, skip, Shift click. And now with my eyedropper tool, I click on the orange just for those little pieces, and when I click outside, it looks like I have a braided rope border. But what I really did, if I turn off my scan for a second, is made a bunch of little puzzle pieces like that. They just all happen to line up perfectly to make you believe that it's a braided border. So I'll just hit Command Z a couple of times to go back. And there we go. Now what's cool about this is I carved this into a bunch of little puzzle pieces. So I could select all of those individual little puzzle pieces and now go to Effect, Distort and Transform, Pucker, and Bloat. Okay, you always move these out of the way, turn on your preview, and if I drag Pucker to the left a little bit and let go, all my shapes will pucker. They'll kind of suck in toward the center, creating these sharp points on the outside. Or if I go to the right to bloat, they will get rounder and rounder and rounder, like little floral petals. But I kind of like the pucker effect right there. And when I click OK, click outside, it looks like I did a lot of work, but you got to remember all we did was start with a simple circle. So with all these shortcuts, there's amazing things you can do with logos in Adobe Illustrator. Hopefully that point is definitely coming across. I'll turn on my template again, Command S, save my progress. Always hold my space bar for the hand tool, and I'll keep pushing this over. Command and minus. And for this perfect crescent, notice all I had to do was one large circle for the outer curve and one slightly smaller circle for the inside curve. So I'm going to take my black arrow right there on the center, and with my alignment guide, I'll line it up to this logo right there. Now on the center of this circle, there's my alignment guide, and I'll move it across so it just overlaps the circle right there. Okay, if it helps, you can select these both, click on the fill option, and fill them with whatever color you want. They don't have to match. You can do it in blue, I don't care. But you can see we have a slightly smaller circle on top of a slightly larger one. So when I select them both, I click the second button on my Pathfinder on the top row. It's called minus front. The little circle is going to be subtracted because it's in the front, and punch out a perfect crescent right there. A lot easier to start with circles than to try and draw these perfect curves with the pen tool. So I'm going to hit Command S. There's another logo done. Space bar for the hand tool. And this is actually the last one. So I'm going to push it over to the right. And we'll push it over to the right to come over to this guy. Again with my black arrow, click on the center of the logo or the shape. Pull that down to start my logo. And again with my alignment guide, I'm going to put it right on that edge of the scan there, like that. Take the center of this oval, and I'm going to move it over. There's my alignment guides, and move it straight down. So half of it is inside the circle, half of it is outside the circle. I'm going to zoom in again so I can see more clearly what I'm doing. With my black arrow, I only select the oval, not the circle, just the oval. I'm going to come over to my rotate tool and click once. Find the center of the entire logo, this big circle right there. There's my smart guide lighting up. And like I did on the very first black logo, you hold your Option key and click. Option key allows me to rotate from the center of the circle. So I'm going to type in an angle of 30 degrees. So you see 30, 60, 90 degrees. So if I'm not sure, turn your preview on and off. There's 30 degrees. I'm going to rotate a copy at 30 degrees. And now that I've just given Adobe Illustrator a command, rotate copies of objects at 30 degrees, I hold down my command key on my keyboard, and I just keep hitting the letter D duplicate, 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 30, 30, 30, Command D, Command D, Command D. And now I've got all those objects overlapping each other. So again, if it's hard to see which one is on top or which one is on bottom, select them all, click on your fill color, and fill them with a color. Let's go with orange so you can see that. So now I can see all the ovals are in front of the circle. Okay, if you did this right and you only copied the ovals, not multiple copies of the circle, you should be able to click the Pathfinder at the top, minus front. Click, and that's the effect you get. If you don't, you're going to have to back up through this video and watch again, because what happens a lot of times is when people select their oval, they accidentally select the oval and the big circle, and that will not work. Okay, I only made copies. If it didn't work, you're going to have to back up and go through the video again, but this is the result you should have. So Command S to save, space bar to move it, and we'll come over to this 6-pointed star. So again, I can just see the tip of the star. That's fine. I'll just pull it down a little bit. There's my alignment guides right there. And now I'm going to move this star right down to there. So it's kind of lining up on those 6 points. Because it says start with a 6-point star. What we have is a 12-pointed star. So what I'm going to do is click once on my rotate tool. Objects want to rotate from their center point. So I just go out to an outside point with my rotate tool, press and hold and drag that point to the next set of points. Okay, Option key for a copy, and I let go of the mouse first. Now with my black arrow, notice how all the outer kind of diamond shapes are colored, the center is blank. But if I selected both of these, clicked on my fill, and filled them with a color, the center is not empty. The center is solid. These are two solid stars. Let me change that color so you can see where they overlap. There we go. And now I want to get rid of the part where these two circles sit right on top of each other, kind of punch out the center. And that is right here. On the far right, you have another Pathfinder called Exclude. So when I click that, it excludes the part where they overlap, basically punching out the center of that logo, only keeping the outer points. Great. Command S. Another one done. Okay, I'm going to hit Command and minus a couple of times just to see where we're at. And hold my space bar. We'll come down to this picture of Saturn here. So I'm going to zoom back in a couple of times right here. And what I want to do is start with the ring of Saturn. So I'm going to take my black arrow on this center point. There's my smart guide. Move that over right there. My alignment guide also lines it up with the center of the circle. Then I'm going to take my center point, move this smaller ellipse, and just glide it in right there. Okay, what I want to do is make that a ring. So when I select them both, I click on the fill, and I'll fill them green. But I need to punch out the center. I need it to make it a ring. So the second Pathfinder is called minus front. I'm going to punch out the center right there. Now I can take the globe, I'll fill that red, and I'll drag that straight down with my alignment guides right there. Okay, but we don't have that depth. We want the ring to go in front of the planet, but look like it wraps behind the planet. Right now, it's just a ring sitting in front of the planet. Okay, so what I have to do is chop this up into little pieces. So I'm going to select everything, go to my Pathfinder panel and click the bottom left corner. I'm going to divide it into smaller pieces. But just always remember, whenever you use divide, you have to go to Object and ungroup the results. Now I click outside and I'll zoom in here for a second, and here is the trick. You don't want to delete this piece because you'd have a big gap in your planet. Okay, so I'm going to undo that move. What you want to do is click on this piece, take your eyedropper and sample the color of the globe. It should be the same color as the rest of the red orb. Okay, what we have is a bunch of puzzle pieces like this. I chopped it up and divided it. So I'll just hit Command Z a couple of times to go back. And what I have to do now is just add the colors back together. So right up here, I click and drag down through the top 3 red pieces, hold Shift and click the bottom red piece. And now on my Pathfinder, the very first button is called Unite. When I click that, it swallows up that shape and becomes one big orb. The ring is divided into a left piece, a front piece, and a right piece. So I got to combine those. Click on green, shift click the second green, shift click the third green, and unite on my Pathfinder. And now it looks like I have a ring going around a planet. Perfect. Command S. I can hold my space bar for the hand tool, pull this over, and I'm going to zoom back in here. Now with my black arrow, I want to click and drag this down so that the top point on this polygon sits right there. Okay, the issue with this logo is these bottom 2 points have to come to meet in the center. And what I'm actually going to do is make them go down a little bit lower than the center. So first I got to make these 2 points meet. So I click outside, and here is the trick. I'm going to take my white arrow tool, my editing tool. I'll start down below, click and drag only over the bottom 2 points, not the upper 3, just those bottom 2 with the white arrow. And then I go to Object menu, Path, Average. I want them to both come to meet on both the horizontal and vertical axes. So when I click OK, they come to a point. Those 2 points, which start to look like a corner, are still selected. So on my keyboard, I hit the down arrow key. And I'm just going to keep hitting that down arrow until I come down past the center. I don't want to stop there. I want to come down past the center. Maybe, let's see, there's the center right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 more clicks past the center. Okay, I'm going to take my black arrow, select everything again, and now with my rotate tool, I'm going to hover right over the center of this logo here. Option click the center of the logo, and I'm going to type in 45 degrees. See, there's 0 degrees, 45, 90. If you're not sure, like I always say, turn the preview on and off and you can see the before and after. So I know 45 degrees is good. I'm going to make a copy. Command D, or just hold down Command as I've told you before and just hit D, 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 D every 45 degrees. Okay, I've got a bunch of shapes that overlap each other in the middle. I select all of them, go right up to my Pathfinder in the upper left corner and click Unite. And now they all come together. I just wanted the center to be a little more solid. That's why I overlapped the center. Otherwise, they would all come to a tiny little point right there. But you can do whatever you want. And I'll fill that blue. So there's my little snowflake symbol, or whatever you want to call that. Command S, save one more time. Hold my space bar, we'll move to the last logo here. And Command and minus, you can see I have what looks like 3 interlocking connected links of a chain. Kind of like the Olympic symbol. Okay, but just like Saturn, the logo we did 2 logos ago, I have to make it look like it wraps around an object or take on the properties of three-dimensional space. And Illustrator is not really a 3D program, so I have to trick the viewer. Okay, with my black arrow, I'm going to click on the bottom point of the circle there and just pull that down with my alignment guide. And I want this right down the center of the red. Not on the inside edge, not on the outside edge, right down the center. Okay, what I'm going to do is make the stroke 20 points. So instead of hitting the up arrow 19 more times, I click the pop-up on the right and come down to 20. Perfect. But notice this is a thick stroke. A stroke can only have one color, but notice our ring has a color in the center, a color on the outside edge, a color on the inside edge. I have to turn it into a pipe, like I've shown you before. With this one thick stroke selected, I go to Object menu, Path, Outline the stroke. And to truly see that I did that right, I'm going to hit the letter D for default colors. White fill, black outline. The outlines on this object are a little thicker, so right up here is my stroke panel. I can hit the up arrow and make those 5, so it matches my scan. Now I just need 2 more copies, so I'm going to take my black arrow, select this ring, click and drag it down with my alignment guide, and right there I hold Option for a copy and let go of the mouse first. Now I hit Command and D to duplicate another copy. Okay, what I'm going to do is fill these with color. So if I turn off my scan, it's red, green, and blue. We'll turn on my artwork there. Sorry, I meant to turn off the artwork, not the scan, but you know what I meant. All right, I select this first ring, go to my fill, we'll fill it red, select, green, select, blue. Okay, and just like Saturn, the blue sits on top of the green totally sits on top of the red. They don't look like they're interlocking. So I'm going to select all 3, go to my Pathfinder, and in the bottom left corner, I'm going to divide these into smaller pieces. Divide. And remember, anytime you divide, you got to go to Object menu and ungroup the results. Once I click outside, I want this green to look like it goes over the red, but look like it tucks behind the red right here. So with my black arrow, I'm going to click outside, then just click that one little square, take my eyedropper, and fill it red. I can hold my Command key to get my arrow again, click this little square right below it, let go of my Command key for my eyedropper, and click on that green. Okay, and just like I did with Saturn, it's just a matter of adding colors back together. So I'm going to click once on this red piece, shift-click red, and on my Pathfinder, I unite all the red pieces into one. Now I'm going to click on the green, shift-click, all the green pieces, and unite into one. Click on a blue piece, shift-click, and unite. And now it looks like the green goes above the red and tucks under or behind, so I have that look of linked chains. Okay, when you're done, you can hit Command and 0 to zoom out to see what you've created. And if you haven't been filling them with color, fill them all with color. Doesn't matter which color you use. Even though this was a black logo, I'll just fill it dark blue. Doesn't matter. Because once you're done, you're going to take your template and throw that in the trash. So all you're going to show me is the great logos that you have created. Okay, I can hit Command S. I'll save that one last time, and this demo on Pathfinder Panel for logos is done. I'll see you in the next tutorial to show you how to use the Pathfinder on words or type. But I'll see you next time.